on my 36th birthday, I had this revelation. I had been living for everyone else in my life up to that point. I didn't know who Chase was. I didn't start living for myself. I didn't step into my own until I was 36.
Chase, welcome to the show.
My dude, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much.
When I was thinking about how to frame this conversation, I was thinking about like the one word that comes to mind when I bring you to mind. And the one word is presence.
Ooh.
Because in all the conversations that I've had with you, I could just feel a sense of this person is fully with me and this person is hearing what I'm saying, but also what's underneath. And people who are present, people who embody presence are my favorite type of people.
Yeah.
So I was curious, what led that to be something that you embody?
I think if I peel back all the layers, there's the given right now. I mean, my profession is this. And so I've made a living out of listening, out of asking questions, and out of being present in order to be hopefully halfway decent at that profession. But I really, if I go all the way back, I give a lot of credit to my years of being a health coach. And so for about 4 years, 3-4 years with a 9-to-5, working every day, seeing patients, we call them patients, we call them clients. I was a medical model, concierge medical model. And I found that I wanted to help people. They were coming there, they were paying good money to work with their doctors, to work with me. And I wanted them to feel their best. I wanted them to get off medication. I wanted them to be able to play with their kids. I wanted them to travel and not have to take 2-3 days to recover because their bodies were so sore, or jet lag or whatever. And I really cared about their well-being because I had found such incredible benefits from taking care of my own well-being, from just a general day-to-day energy standpoint, optimization, even some unique rehabilitation from some old injuries. And I was like, man, other people, they need to know this. They need to know how to do these things. And here I am in the role to help them get there. And as a green coach coming out of college, and I got my certifications, and I think I know all these things. I knew a fair amount. Again, I'm the guy they're coming to learn these things. And I tried for a while just to regurgitate as much information as I had learned or I thought that they needed to hear, or here's the scientific explanation for that. Here's the best program for this. And I realized, man, I wasn't pushing through these walls like I wanted to, and we weren't getting the results that I felt these people deserved and that I wanted to give them. And so I just began to just hang all that up, man. I just was, okay, let me sit here. Let me just be with them. Let me be as present as possible. Let me just let them know that, look, I see you. I hear you. I feel you. And I began to introduce more of just the humanization into coaching. They come to me because I'm the expert, right? And so they're expecting answers. But what I would give them was, I'm so sorry to hear that you're having this difficult time. I've been through that as well. I've lost a loved one. I've been through injury. I've lost motivation. I've traveled. I have been in your shoes, or maybe am in your shoes. But hey, look, I got a few things that can help you move the needle a little bit. And so once they realized that I was there with them, and then we came together to develop a plan, the synchronicities just kicked in. The adherence kicked in. The results kicked in. And so I really do think being a coach and learning how to just sit and be present with somebody to help literally their livelihood helped bring that into, what I do now, to be as present as possible.
Were there any particular stories or people that come to mind for like this situation? I was present and it led to this result.
There's one that I always kind of reference for usually, I'll say general weight loss or adherence or behavior change questions. But I mean, even to your question here, I would give the same story because it really is a matter of how present are you with what you're doing and the people that you're serving, and what are you not seeing? There was this woman I had been working with for probably 2 years. And for the first time in about 15 years, she told me, at least a decade, we got her under 300 pounds.
Wow.
That's life-changing weight. Like we literally probably saved her life getting under 300 pounds. And then all of a sudden, she was doing some one-on-one work with me as well as group. And out of nowhere, she just began to just reschedule. She would not show up one-on-one in the group experience. And I called her up and we had like a sidebar after hours conversation. She was really kind of hesitant to come back into the clinic. And I talked with her and I could see just the emotion in her face. She was like almost ashamed to tell me something. And the tears started coming and she just out of nowhere to me began to tell me the story of how her sisters and her mother growing up were sexually, physically, emotionally abused by this guy that her mom had been seeing.
Wow.
Everyone except for her, because she was the oldest, she was the biggest. And she was like, I don't know why, Chase, but ever since I've lost all this weight, I feel unsafe. I feel like the world is out to get me. I've become more hostile in the workplace, especially towards other men that are pushing back to me and to other women in the workplace. And she shared with me that story. And we realized that, okay, I have served you as best I can up to this point, but there is this other area that you need to work on that's outside of my scope of practice that once you do, or at least in conjunction with what we're doing, I really think we can get there. And if I had just been the guy that was like, okay, she's not committed. She doesn't want to come back in. It's her money. It's fine. I'll just replace her kind of thing. But if I had not been present with what was seen, what was unseen, what was heard, and what was not vocalized, man, she probably would have just gone back to old habits. She would have gone back to gaining that weight. I mean, I don't know what would have happened to her, but by really paying attention to what was there and not there and being present in that experience, I seriously do think that, we came together to save her life.
Wow. That's a really, really powerful story. What do you think makes people open up in that way when they're feeling those levels of shame and guilt and disassociation and fear to share the truth of what happened, the truth that they're suppressing for so long? What do you think makes that happen?
I'll share what I think works for me because I'm human and I think this is probably pretty relatable. When we open up, when we become more vulnerable, when we let our guard down, when we let our walls down, even just a little bit or all the way, it's because we feel a level of trust and safety and non-judgment in whatever container we're in, whether that's a place you are, maybe it's a retreat, maybe it's a drive in the woods, maybe it's, in a room somewhere, maybe it's with a friend, a family member, for whatever the reason. When you feel this energy between yourself and this other person, this place that is actually calling you, it almost like calls out this thing that you're so hesitant to share, or for whatever reason, like, I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I shared that with you. Like, I don't know where that came from. Something I was thinking or feeling or something you said, just, I couldn't not vocalize this. And it's because our conscious and subconscious, I think for the first time ever or in a long time, are, hey, we're in a safe place here. Our nervous system is finally at a place where we can relax and let out what needs to be let out. It comes from a place of safety, security, and definitely no judgment.
So how does somebody listening, because you embody those qualities to me,
try to
a feeling of openness and a feeling of non-judgment and a feeling of curiosity, how does somebody cultivate that within themselves so that they are the type of person who is capable of holding space?
I don't think you're going to realize your ability to hold space for other people or with someone else if you can't first navigate that for yourself. I don't think I would be anywhere close to the capacity that I'm hearing you say, in this energetic exchange, if I had not gone through exploring that with myself, if I had not allowed the floodgates to open. First of all, choosing the floodgates to open and then allowing them to. And it all goes back for me to this period in summer 2015 when long story short, was just kind of like at this peak of everything. I was the strongest I'd ever been, the leanest I'd ever been, getting promoted, moved up to DC, was in a, I thought great place with my relationship with my girlfriend at the time. And then out of nowhere, I was having severe panic attacks. I was losing strength. I was really losing motivation. My girlfriend broke up with me. We're married now. We're good. We went through a really odd, I don't know if we're together kind of period of time. And I found myself in this leadership position at work, and I couldn't manage. All these other things just fell apart. And I was like, why? Like, I'm counting all my macros, I'm hitting all my workouts, I'm doing all the things, I'm showing up, being the person that I think everybody else needs me to be. But I was ignoring what I wanted. I was ignoring what I needed. I was ignoring the physical, the emotional, mental, and spiritual components of myself, and all these things that I've been stuffing down. Or even not even to that extreme, I think you can make the same argument of I was not prioritizing downtime. I was not prioritizing the quiet, stillness, and just letting things come up that I didn't even know were there. And I share that because that's what the catalyst was for me. And once that happened, man, I was blown away at what came out. Literally thoughts, words, feelings, tears.
What was it?
Writing it down. It was so much of where did this come from? What is this? But also majority for me was, Chase, you know that you have not been dealing with this thing for 10, 12 years. And that thing for me was I suppressed the death of my father. I refused to grieve. I went back to work. I went back to active duty Army when he passed away. And so I told myself this lie. To some degree, I believe it was a lie, that there's no place for that here. There's no time. There's no manliness. If you let your guard down, what are your peers going to think of you? What are your leaders going to think of you? This could end your career. This could cost lives. This could cost a lot. And so for years and years and years, I just stuffed that down. And once I just chose to open up time and space to let out whatever needed to come out, but also I consciously chose to turn and face this thing that I had been running from for so many years. I mean, think about the worst day of your life. Think about maybe whatever the big capital T trauma event for you, Danny, for anybody listening, whatever that thing is for you. If you choose to turn and face it, and if you take a step forward and go, I'm going to run towards it and I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to not let it go until I have developed a relationship with it, or I have redeveloped a relationship with it, whether I've been ignoring it or I have been just lying to myself about what really happened, the work will reveal itself. The confidence that you have been looking for will reveal itself, because I don't think you can be fully confident in who you are, how you navigate the world, or long before you can ever help anybody else, open up that energetic space, if you have not allowed all of that to rise to the top. And you've got to dance with it, and you've got to hold it, and you've got to learn to live with it, because it's in the past, but it's still a part of you.
It's so powerful. What does it actually look like in that moment, 10 to 12 years before you realized to process it and let it go then?
What did it look like when I chose to face it?
What does it look like to have your father die, the capital T trauma event, and then in that moment, or in the next day, or in the next week, release it? Is that possible? And what do you wish you would have done, or what is possible that would have helped someone in a future scenario dealing with this? What can help them grow from the situation almost immediately?
What I think probably, would have helped me, and what I always, like anybody who goes through any kind of significant loss, traumatic event, is probably my go-to piece of advice. My biggest regret, really my only regret in life, is not allowing myself to feel, to not allowing myself to sit with, this sucks, this hurts, this is the worst. I'm so angry, I'm so pissed off, I'm so sad, I'm so depressed, I'm so, really insert any other emotion other than, wow, life is great. Or even just, all right, today's the day. anything sub baseline, we tend to ignore, we tend to push off, we tend to try to convince ourselves or motivate ourselves to get away from. Oh, no time for that. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be weak. Like, no. Like, life isn't that bad. Sure. I also believe that the argument can be made, no matter how bad your situation is, there's always somebody that has it worse. So that does help give you perspective. But that doesn't mean it's not troubling to you. That doesn't mean it doesn't have an impact on your life, on your heart, on your mind. And so the biggest regret that I had was just going, okay, I literally buried my father after watching him wither away and die from ALS for 18 months, being really absent for those 18 months because I was thousands of miles away, active duty Army at the time. And I had so much regret about that. I had so much regret about, Chase, you put the needs of your country above your own family. Chase, like, you should have been there for your father. You should have been there for your brother, your sister, your mom. Like, you should have. And just anger and regret and resentment, I chose to be the more dominant feelings. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to feel. This is what I deserve. Instead of going, Chase, your hero just suffered a horrible death. Your family dynamics are going to be drastically different right now. You're 18, 19 years old. I had no recognition of where I was in life, and really the ripple effect that situation had. I didn't sit with it at all. I didn't go, all right, you know what? This hurts. This is painful, but this is going to teach me something. I need to learn how to sit with this. I say, any Dexter fans out there, there's this analogy of your dark passenger. And for me, that was my dark passenger. And I didn't learn to sit with him. And instead, I let him be at the driver's seat. Instead of going, all right, you know what? We're in this car together. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. But you know what? I can at least put you in the passenger seat. I can put you in the back seat. Hell, I can put you in the damn trunk. But you know what? I need to sit with you, redevelop this relationship, and choose to take my power back. And so that's what my regret is. And that's what I wish that I could go back and do differently. And what I would tell anybody is honor those feelings. Embrace the suck, sit with the pain, but give yourself some parameters. You know, all right, I'm going to give myself, not to say that grief has any kind of timeline, right? Yeah. But all right, give yourself 3 days, give yourself a week, give yourself just the time and the space to, like we're saying earlier, just let come out what needs to come out. There are going to be, especially any traumatic experience, there are going to be thoughts that terrify you, feelings that are beyond any pain you could ever experience physically, I believe. And that's a part of the human experience. And you need to learn how to navigate those. You need to learn how to use them, because if you don't, they're going to use you. And that's what they did for me for the next 12, 13 years before I decided to turn and face it.
No one teaches us. No one's like, oh my God, this is the playbook for feeling this emotion. And when this happens, this is how you can respond to it. Like, everyone has some version of the dark passenger. Some people are like, I'm not looking at this. Some people are like, I'm so scared to look at this. Where do you sit today with the dark passenger?
I love them.
Wow.
I love them.
Wow.
And I said this many times over the last 2 years. The last 2 years for me have been the most transformational, particularly around this event, because I have revisited that dark passenger and I have run not only head on to it, but I have chosen to really to go through some I believe we talked about this in our last interview a couple of years ago, which was the very beginning of all this journey of, okay, I've made a lot of progress, but it still feels like there's a ball and chain. I might be moving forward. I might be making progress in my life, but it still feels like I'm just adding a link onto this chain. And I know in my mind and in my heart of hearts, I know that there is this billion-pound ball at the end of it. And no matter how far I get away from it, I'm still tethered to it. So I chose to just go through the most intense therapeutic modalities that I could and just, reface it for the first time in a long time and just fully commit to, I want to put this in my past. And I think for a lot of people, especially navigating a loss, traumatic event, to say that out loud feels wrong. To go, I just want to get over this. I think it's all what we want, but to really choose that and to believe that that's possible is a scary thought, because it comes with it, well, who am I without this? Mm. Especially in my case, I lost a loved one. If I move past this, if I get over it, what does that say about his memory? Am I just going, all right, cool, see you later, Dad. You were my hero, my reason for everything, but you know what? I'm over you now. I was like, I don't know. Like, I was terrified of what my life would look like and what my relationship to those memories would be. But I'm here to tell you that I love knowing that that was a thing that happened in my past, and I can revisit it whenever I want. It no longer is choosing. It is no longer dominating my life. It is no longer popping up when I don't want it to. Mm. Now, through that work, those last couple of years, realizing I had gone years with undiagnosed PTSD, I still have these triggers. I still have, I'll hear a song, or I'll see a sign, or just any memory living will pop up and jar a memory where it feels like I live a week inside of this instantaneous moment and I'm reprocessing. All of a sudden I feel the same feelings of when I would have panic attacks, when I would black out, when I would just, be inconsolable. Mm-hmm. But my subconscious and my nervous system can way more rapidly process and go, hey, that was just a memory, Chase. That was just in the past. You are here right now. You are safe. You are loved. And just because you're choosing to just let this go now doesn't mean that you're abandoning it. You're not abandoning this relationship to your father. You're not abandoning this idea or these memories. They're always going to be there. It's just, how do you want to visit them instead of them come up and haunt you whenever they want? And so it all is possible, but it first comes down with choice. And it's going to be one of the hardest choices it was one of the hardest choices I've ever made. And for anybody else, it will be as well, because all of the fear and uncertainty on the other side of it. But once you do, it just becomes a part of you. Just like, any other skill set that you have been afraid to learn how to do or habit to build. And then you look back a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of years later, and you're like, wow, I don't even need to think about it anymore. It's just who I am.
It's remarkable. And the reason why this podcast is focused on these topics is because you can go to the gym, you can make a lot of money, and you could feel success in those arenas. But this is the truth of your experience. If you're wealthy, if you're famous, if you have a great body, but like, what's underneath all that? And what's underneath all that is the place that you got to and living a better day-to-day experience with a higher consciousness. So what in the last 2 years has been the growth that's come? I know we spoke it last 2 years ago. And so what's been the 2-year growth in your own consciousness, and what's helped you evolve from this, as well as just in general?
Yeah. I know we talked about it on that last episode, and I'm pretty sure I was right at the beginning of, like I said, a lot of unique modalities, therapeutic modalities. And I won't beat a dead horse, so to speak, but for me, it was going back to therapy and going through ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, because I knew that, all right, I've been doing the self-work. I've been going to therapy off and on for years, and it was helping. But I chose to really go into the deep end. I was like, I want to clear this. I'm going to need the big guns. And I've been researching a lot of this for the use of PTSD and significant traumatic events, or just for use with people that are really, for lack of a better term, at their wit's end of, I've been trying so many other things to heal and to feel better and to get my life back. I'm just not quite there. And that was me. And so fast forward, I went through, in those 2 years, probably about 18 sessions, in clinic, at home, telehealth, with a sitter or with a psychotherapist, all fully prescribed. And the one moment that did it for me was, and this is just a real testament to the power of, there's the work, but then there's the reflection and there's integration. I don't know if I would have had this revolutionary moment in my healing if I had not had that integration component afterwards. I came out of my journey, came out of my session. My wife was there. She was my sitter, who's also a psychedelic nurse practitioner. So it's like a win-win for me.
How much did you pay
her? Not enough. And like usual, if I wasn't in the clinic, she would come into the bedroom with me, and I would just kind of, I mean, you're coming out, you're a little groggy, but a lot of this, it's like a very lucid dream. And so I began to just kind of like word vomit and describe all these things. And I said this thing, and I was like, oh yeah. And then like, 'cause up to that point, pretty much every journey, I was with my father again. And so that was instrumental in my healing. But this one, I kind of just skipped him over. I was like, oh yeah, your dad was over there. And like, I went on and I was like, I had this experience. And then I went back to it, and I was like, wait a minute. He was there, but I chose to not visit him. Like I didn't bring him along in that experience, or for whatever reason, he didn't join me. But it was, the way that I said it, Danny, was, oh yeah, my dad's back home. Like I'll call him. Like he's not gone. He's there. And just like you have with any living relative or friend, you know that you can reach out whenever you want and touch them and talk to them. And it gives me goosebumps now to say it out loud. I got
tears in my eyes. And
when I told her that, when I said that, I wept. That's that wasn't crying. It was this years of, at that point, probably 16, 17 years of just emotional weight pouring out of me, because I didn't realize how much I've been holding on to. I'll never be able to like reach out to my dad. I'll never be able to pick up the phone and call him. I'll never be able to do all this stuff. But it just, in a moment, it all changed. And as real as you and I are here today, it was the reality that, oh man, I can talk to dad anytime I want. He's always here, always there. And if you're religious, if you're spiritual, whatever you choose to believe in or not, there's just this undeniable truth to that no one will ever shake for me. And so there was that one distinguishable moment that was life-changing for me.
Wow. It's that realization that somebody can be with you and present even when they're not physically there. And it's so fascinating how you broke that down of like almost a clinging to then being in the situation of, oh, dad's still here and I can go do my own thing and he's still with me.
Exactly.
Like that is such a beautiful realization that gives me so much peace. And I'm so grateful for you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you, man. I mean, and I share all this, because look, a lot of what I do is, sharing publicly, social media, podcasts. Over the years, I've chosen to be, like you, to some degree, one of the weird people that just lets it rip online, share.
Normal to me.
And there's, maybe some boundaries that need to be worked on with that, but I personally believe, and I believe it because I felt it, that the more that I share publicly, the more that I heal privately.
That's a great line. Say that again.
The more that I share publicly, the more that I am able to heal privately. And it seems counterintuitive, right? You would think like, I need to work on me. I need to work on this stuff. I need to, be a recluse. I need to go in. Maybe, but I'm here to tell you, as someone who has done that and very publicly for many years gone, this is what I'm working on. This is how I'm suffering. This is where it hurts the most, how it hurts the most, and why. And here is what I'm doing to hopefully try and come out of this on the other side healed, or at least in a much better place than I have been. There is so much power to saying things out loud. Even if you just make a video on your phone and don't ever post it, it's real and it's out there and it's something that can be visited by you. But then when you do share it online, man, of all the years, of all the things that I have put out on the internet, nothing has come close to the feedback, the DMs, the emails, the comments, the messages, the shares, the everything as that healing experience did. Particularly me choosing to face in these very intense modalities, the death of my father and going over a decade with not processing grief. And, I've helped people with health hacks. I've worked one-on-one, group. I've made videos, programs, coaching apps. I've done all this stuff, all in the hopes of helping people move forward in their life and unique areas of their wellness. Danny, nothing came close to that. And it's so powerful when you choose to work on your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health, how much the needle moves in your physical life as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's way more than I can accurately talk about or describe, but just some great resources for people. And it's a thick one. The Body Keeps a Score.
Yeah.
But, even again, personally, and I've talked about this in some other pieces of content that, when I would have such realizations as that, and, and other ones, whether it was through psilocybin work, ketamine, just breath work, meditation, choosing to sit still in my living room, light a candle, set a vibe, sit on my yoga mat, maybe just stretch. Literally, that's it. Not even inducing myself into an altered state of consciousness, but just allowing those things to come back up. I feel lighter. I feel the next day I go work out, I'm stronger. I shit you not. I've had PRs on my main lifts in the gym the day or days after some of my most extreme emotional mental health breakthroughs. Call it correlation, not causation. I don't know, but I'm here to tell you that was real for me. And I'd be willing to bet if other people focused even just an ounce of the same prioritization they did on their relationship, on their job, on their corporate life, on their successes, on their physical life, and just carved out a little bit for what they've been consciously or subconsciously keeping inside. It's like, I don't even know if it's really quantifiable, like fully.
Dude. Oh my God. You just brought up, there's so much here that I'm
let's go, baby.
Okay.
Let's go. Open book.
So one thing that comes to mind is a story that I read recently from the Buddha of a woman comes to the Buddha and says, I don't know what to do. My 13-year-old son died. And what should I do? I'm in absolute shambles. I'm in grief. I'm freaking out. The Buddha says to this woman, I want you to go to every house and find somebody, or find, for every house that you go to, collect a seed for if a family has not lost someone, and come back to me when you find a seed. And she goes around to all these houses, knocks on every door, every single one. And she comes back to the Buddha a week, a month, a year later, and says, I don't have any seed.
Got no seeds. Damn.
Everyone here, everyone is going to lose someone. Everybody. And in that moment, it is said that she became enlightened. And so what I think the reason why you talking about your truth and your grief in the way that it is because everybody can relate. Literally, it is the thing in our Western society where we've just made the world about the self and us. We've lost the understanding of the truth of the deeper life and what life is. And it's the connection to all things.
The connectedness, the oneness, absolutely.
The oneness. Yeah. And you're bringing that to the surface in a way that is understandable for people to realize. And that's to circle it back to presence. What is presence? Presence is a connection with yourself first and then with another. And the more you process, the more you go through those levels of grief, of shame, the more you are able to be present because you have fully connected with yourself. So you're able to give that gift to another human being.
And I don't think you can have one fully without the other. You can't be connected to yourself and believe that you are fully present if you are not also connected to other people.
Yes.
You cannot be present with other people and believe that you are fully present if you are not also connected to yourself. And the moment that I realized that was also the moment that I realized how selfish I had made suffering. And that's also another unsexy part about what we're talking about here. And I'm here to tell you, I've had these conversations with myself. And when you agree that you have made your suffering all about you, or even not agree, if you can just acknowledge that I have made this all about me. My dad died. My life sucked. My pain was insurmountable, my blah, 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 blah. It's you. It's all you. And you can analyze that a little bit, to go with, ego work. The more you're talking about me, myself, and I, there's a prime driver for ego. But maybe just so to kind of help other people look at where this might be spilling over and you don't realize it, because it was for me, how I made my suffering so selfish was the second that I got out of the military. I drove from San Antonio, Texas, where I was stationed, all the way back to Virginia, and I inserted myself into my family, into my community so forcefully. But in my mind at the time, I thought it was because it's what they need, it's what they want. We have lost time to make up for. I wasn't here for these years with my dad being sick. I wasn't here for my mom, my stepmom, my grandparents, my brother, my sister, my community, my friends. So damn it, I'm here now. Moved back home, started college with my brother, inserted myself into his friend group, was showing up to all these family events, was like being overbearing. And I know this now looking back. I'm like, oh, of course they're going to want to hang out with me. Of course they're going to want me home. Of course. Like, bro, that's all you. Mm-hmm. That's all you. And we have the best intentions, and especially around a loss. Oh man, like, you know what? I'm never going to leave this group again, or I'm never going to go more than a week, a month, whatever, without seeing my family or these people. That's still you. I never once had a conversation with those people about, how are you doing with this? How can I support your suffering? What do you need from me? Do you need me here? Do you want me here? Or do you want me to kick rocks? Do you want me to like come back in a week? Do you want to just not talk about this right now because maybe I'm more ready to than you are? And that's the thing. That's the tricky part about suffering is we don't realize how selfish we make it. And another huge part of my healing with all that was I acknowledged that. And I even have gone back to a lot of my family members and go, I'm so sorry for like just making myself here all the time. I thought that's what you needed and what you wanted, but it's just what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And it didn't really serve anyone.
It's baked into that is the assumption. It's like, where in your life are you assuming that it is this way without asking? And I think that's what's so remarkable about what we do is we're training ourselves to ask. Mm-hmm. We're training ourselves to ask the quote unquote basic question that you assume you know the answer to. And the more you can do that, the more you can sit with the fact that you actually don't know what love means to someone, or you don't know what suffering actually looks like because you ask the question, what is this suffering like for you? Or what does love mean for, right? So like,
and the tricky part about that as well is we think that we're doing ourselves a service by helping others. We think we're helping them. That's still running away from the problem. By me inserting myself into every other person, place, and thing as fast as I could back home, that was still me running away from not dealing with it.
Wow. And on the surface, people could say, look at Chase. He's doing the right thing for all the people and he's going home and he's helping out his family. And that's the story you were telling yourself.
Absolutely.
But you hadn't asked. You didn't ask, hey, do you want me here? What do you need in this moment from me?
And I think the greater through line there is, how often do we go through life doing, whether it's through a traumatic event, a loss, or even in the good times and successes, how often do we act out of what we think we're supposed to do? Mm-hmm. What if before we chose to do anything, I'm not even saying like take a 10-day Vipassana or a wellness retreat and, think about every life choice, but man, the power that I have felt and the truth that I have taken back in my life and the things that I have realized I had not been honoring that deserve to be honored in just who I am as a person and what I want for my life, and also how I can more directly serve the people that I'm trying and with good intention to serve, just inserting a pause in a text message, in an email, on a phone call, but damn sure before something like packing up and, moving across the country, man, just take a deep breath, take a series of deep breaths, take a minute, take an hour, take a day, take a week, take a month, sit still until you can wholeheartedly go, I am responding appropriately to this situation for me and out of the best interest of others because I have actually communicated with them instead of making assumptions versus just reacting based on, oh, this happened, this is what I'm supposed to do. This happened, this is what everybody needs from me, what they want from me, what society tells me is the right next step. Man, there's no next step. The only right next step is the one that presents itself to you out of that present moment.
I love it so much. It's ego versus soul. It's understanding. You know, I was talking to Mike Posner, and Mike's like, so I had this hit song, and then I was supposed to go on tour, and I'm supposed to, which I recorded at your studio. God bless. Thank you.
I just saw the video, by the way. Yeah.
And it's like, he's saying, you know, I had this path that I was on. It's like, where did that path come from? It's like, Elvis? Did Elvis create that path of like having a hit song and then going on tour?
Right. Yeah.
But like, how are we like in our lives, like living on the path of other people? It's like, okay, I'm posting 3 episodes a week. Who created that path? You know, like, why am I doing that? What is the underneath subtext of that? It's like, okay, if I do all these podcasts, then I'm going to grow my show. And then if I grow my show, like, okay, what?
If then.
Yeah. And it's like the only right thing is what the present moment calls for. And that's why being present to the creation of life is my mission for 2024 and is my mission for every day. Because it's like you don't know what opportunity is going to unfold if you are actually living in truth and soul over ego.
Can I get that in like a coaster? Put it on the coffee table, man. To kind of share a little bit more what came about from those 2 years of the most intense therapy modalities in my life was I realized, Danny, on my 36th birthday, I had this revelation. I had been living for everyone else in my life up to that point. I didn't know who Chase was. I didn't start living for myself. I didn't step into my own until I was 36.
And how old are you now?
I'm 38.
Wow.
And I struggled so much with that because, you know, maybe it's because I'm the oldest of 3, come from a small town, military, you know, I had a lot of these influences and nuances and identities that were just a part of my nature and a part of my nurture. Now, my choices leading up to that point were always my choices. I always say that, you know, I loved how my parents raised me and the relationship I had with my dad, even though he was a military guy, and literally every generation before, every generation of Chewnings, there's been a service member.
Wow.
And, you know, he wasn't like, Chase, this is what we do. You're going to do it. You're going to follow my footsteps, your uncle's footsteps, your grandfather, great. It was just presented to me. But there was always this self-inflicted, compelling aspect to just do what other people, what I thought they needed, what I thought they wanted, what I was supposed to do. My choice to leave home at 17 and join the Army was, I realized at 36, yeah, I signed the paper, but like that wasn't my choice. I was attempting to fill a role that no one actually asked me to fill.
Which is the same thing that happened when you went back home.
Exactly. And so once I realized that, and this is where I think a lot of us, if we get very honest and we choose to face these things and just reflect on our choices, it seems difficult because you can go, well, who would really, you know, give me any crap for joining the military during a time of war? Who would give me any crap for honoring a family legacy? Who would say anything about going back home? Who would say anything? But again, who asked you? Who asked you? And in that moment, I realized, okay, I can't undo anything that I did, nor would I want to. The pain, the suffering, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I would still make all those choices because it landed me in that moment of developing the clarity of, okay, all right, Chase, start living your life for you. Start today and think about who you are and what you agree with, what you disagree with, what you have just been allowing because of assumptions. And man, the last 2 years, I have never felt this light. I have never been more happy. I've never had more purpose, more fulfillment. I've never had such clarity in just the most mundane daily tasks. But best believe, damn sure when it comes down to the biggest choices in my life or my business.
The past 2 years of your life have been transformative.
I've been living my life for the first time at 36, 37, now 38.
So what could you give people by way who aren't experiencing that, a taste for what it actually feels like on the day-to-day?
I feel like maybe the answer people might be looking for is it feels wonderful. It feels like you have all the answers in the world. It feels like, oh, I sorted through my shit and no bad days and you got it all figured out. But like, we're laughing because that doesn't exist, you know? What I can tell you my experience has been is that, like the example I shared earlier of, even I still have these trigger moments of where something is said, or I have a memory, or I see something or feel something, and in an instant I am transported back into those same scenarios that used to be crippling for me in that moment, days, weeks, months to follow. But there's a piece that is developed when you choose to face these things, to work on them, to be as present as possible, no matter what that scenario is or what that feeling or emotion is. There is a level of peace and cohabitation even that I never thought would be possible. The hard times will come back to you. You'll experience more of them. The good times will come back to you. You'll hopefully experience more of those as well. But the relationship that you develop with those emotions, those thoughts, and yourself is going to be the answer that you're looking for. There is no, oh, I just woke up today and, I shook it off. It's all gone. It's just the realization that, oh, this isn't going anywhere. But I can take, for the first time, the driver's seat of how I want them to navigate my life. Or am I finally going to go, you know what? I'm navigating my life. It's peace, and it's a relationship that will show you exactly what to do in every scenario. And it literally is day by day. It's so day by day.
Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind for me is that there was a long time where there was this issue and you were looking the other way from the issue. And now it's almost like you've turned around to face it. And sometimes it disappears and sometimes it comes back, but like, you're willing to look.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to look, and if you're willing to be there and sit with it, you actually understand there's freedom in that.
Yeah.
There's love in that, in facing the problem. When you look in the mirror and you're like, I am not the ideal body that I want to be. You are looking in the mirror at the problem versus not looking, the mirror's not even there and you don't want to even see yourself.
So true. Yeah.
And that applies for your physical body. That applies for your emotional body too. And the fact that you've had the courage over the past 2 years to look at the thing that was holding you back so much gives me so much hope for humanity. Because if we are all willing to look at our collective stuff, the world becomes a lighter place.
I have to start kind of laughing in my head too, because as you're describing that, it makes me think of how I've chosen to, to put my messaging out in the world is to literally move forward, ever forward. And so for so many years, I thought that meant just only looking forward.
Away from the problem.
Don't ever look back, because the second that you do, it's going to hurt and it's going to suck and you're going to get trapped. So just keep going forward. But and it's funny now because, again, I have this totally different relationship with it. It's almost, while it's still true, I do it differently now. I run backwards. I turn and I don't stay focused on the past, but let's just say for analogy example here.
Sure.
Instead of just always choosing to go forward and to never look backwards, I have turned around, done an about face, and I'm going to run backwards, forwards. I'm going to stare down every step that I just took, every obstacle that I just overcame, all the pain and the suffering, all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm going to choose to look at it, because the further that I get away from it, I am re-navigating my relationship with it, because I am not the same person. I'm one step further. And I think that's where a lot of people sell themselves short, and you move forward, but yet these things still come up. You take one step forward, two steps back, and you're like, I'm doing the things. I'm doing the gym. I'm doing the meditation. I'm doing the retreats. I'm doing all of these things, but there's just, why can't I let this go? Why is my past still haunting me? Why does it still hurt? It's not meant to be left in the past. It's meant to be brought with you every step of the way, but you have to, in order to move forward, to thoroughly, fully move forward, you have to develop and redevelop a relationship with it. It never ends. I'm here to tell you that. It might just get less frequent. It might get less intense, but it never ends.
What do you say to people who are like, but my pain is fueling me, and my pain is actually the thing that makes me different and that is allowing me to achieve? I don't want to let that go.
That's fear. Kind of like we were talking about before, that's being selfish with your suffering. That is you being afraid of what is on the other side of that thing fueling you. Because who am I without that? People know me as this person. I have built a career, a platform, a following, a bank account, a community, whatever, off of being known as this thing, being known for this thing. What happens if I come out and I go, I'm over it? I don't need this to be my daily mantra, daily fuel, because I'm here to tell you there's other shit in the world that works, And I think no matter what our belief system is attached to our why, and this might ruffle some feathers, especially around the whole concept of know your why, you could be wrong about your why. You could be staying attached to your why longer than necessary. You could be doing yourself a disservice by keeping yourself and your identity attached to the same why for so long. I think, kind of just thinking out loud, I think this is what happened to me, and I think this might help a lot of other people, is audit your why. When did I attach myself to this? Why do I have this why? What am I doing with it? Am I just staying latched on for the sake of latching on? Maybe I feel some kind of way, and there's a lot of fear and hesitation around changing your why for what you do as well. But that certainly was the case for me. And I like that point of me attaching myself to the why of ever forward, my father's mantra. I'm just going to keep moving forward. When I started looking back, I was not only able to move forward with such clarity and lightness in ways that I had never done before, but also never thought possible. It also, I won't say completely restructured my brand, my messaging, my everything, but I had a totally different relationship to it. So you best believe I had a different relationship to the work that came out of it. Now, total honesty, before all this, I feel like I was using it. Dead dad card.
Wow.
Pain and suffering card. Mm-hmm. Immobilized injury card. You're not special. Like, yeah, it sucked. It really did. But you know what? People go through this every day, unfortunately. And so when I realized that honestly, from a creative standpoint, was like a breath of fresh air that I didn't know that I needed. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. That's still going to be there, but I don't have to use it as much or as often. There are other ways that I can step stone from here to grow, to find new interests, to expand, to do all these things, and still take the core of that message with me, but find other applications for it, you know?
Dude, I really think there's like a book in there, or at the very least an essay or Instagram post of like, audit your why. Like your why can change and your why can grow and your why can be something different. And you can use the things that you've that were fueling you in the past, but it might not be the thing that are fueling you today.
You have to be your why. And I'm going to get attached to this water bottle, and this is going to be a major significant event in my life, and I'm going to love it. But here's what's going to happen. I don't know if people can see this on the video.
Yeah,
I'm going to be here, and I'm going to grow, and I'm going to extend. And I'm going to now try to overextend to keep myself attached to this. But like, what's happening? Life is happening. My ideas, my wants, my passions, my interests, my thoughts, my fears, my everything are growing. And I am trying my damnedest to stay attached to this moment in time because it was important, because I told people about it, because it helped me in some way. Look at all this open space. Look at this blank slate. Look at what I can find now. It's still there. Just because I let go of it, just because I detach even a slight bit from it, it's still there. We can always fall back on it. We can always extract lessons from it. We can always repurpose it, whatever. But man, the second, and this was another huge realization I had in one of my ketamine therapy sessions, was I literally, I think it was my second or third journey. I had, oh man, this is like so powerful, at least for me. I went through this, we'll call it a crowd surfing experience of every single person in my life from growing up, but also after, we'll call this, my father's death, my biggest traumatic event. And I was passed through every single person, small or large role in my life. And I could see them and I could feel them and I could remember every input they had on my life. And as I got to the end, I was faced with my father again. And I looked back at this world of a life, a literal globe, a planet of life and choices and people. And I turned to him, and then I looked past, and there was a blank slate, this empty earth, a plain white orb planet. And I realized I had been fearful to let go of this, of these people, of these things, of my why, because it was my life. It was the world that I had created, the world that I had built, the world that I believed I was also in and a part of. Nobody asked me. Nobody wanted me. And that, not to sound harsh, but like, that's the truth. The world is yours. I'm just living in it. The world is mine. You're just living in it. We all walk out of here and we are the main players in our world. But like, to what extent do we realize that we actually have the authority to change our world? And when I looked at this empty planet, I was like, damn, now I get to go to work. Now I get to carve out my why. Now I can just do whatever I want, more or less. This isn't going anywhere. But that doesn't mean it should keep me from going where I actually want to in my life.
And create what you want to create.
Exactly.
And let go with a blank canvas and understanding it's still there.
Yeah.
But you can now build the life you want to live, not based on the assumptions of others, but just based on what is truly you. And I find it remarkable that our first podcast together was the start of this journey, and now continuing it.
That's wild.
Like, it's so special that almost like my consciousness understood that you were going through a transformation in some sense. And because I'd been aware of your stuff for a while, but like, why did I reach out then? Interesting stuff to think about.
Yeah.
I want to ask about fatherhood itself, because you're not a father, but you act as a father figure to so many. I know, for example, my friend Dom Fusco, like, he always sings your praises, in a role that is similar to an older brother or a father.
Yeah.
I know Zach Pograb had such a similar experience when you interviewed him for your show. And he was like, I feel like I learned so much about myself from that podcast. And that is the role of the father in some sense. So regardless of the fact that you're not an actual father in this moment, you are acting as a father. And that is a remarkable thing. What makes for a good father?
Oof. Every dad listening is like, don't screw this up, Chase. You're going to get it bad for us. I would answer that based on my relationship with my father, because I didn't fully realize it at the time, but how good I had it with the relationship with my father. And we had a lot of unique things, I'll say, working against us that might be relatable to a lot of people, that might result in a less than ideal fatherhood experience. My parents divorced when I was like 4 or 5 years old. We moved out of a home from one city to move back home and we lived with our grandparents. Didn't have a whole lot financially. My dad was gone a lot for work. When he joined the military, he was gone, Persian Gulf vet, stationed in different states sometimes, going back and forth between grandmother, stepmother, mother, father, living with my brother, my sister being separated from us, living with her. So there was a lot of, like, I guess you call it the broken home dynamic. But yet I never wanted for anything. When my father was present, he was present. And even somehow when he was away, he was present. What I think makes for a good father is, to bring a full circle, is presence, and just to think of examples of what that means for me with him. I think it's part delegation. I think it's part communication with family members and with partners, so that just because one technical parental figure is there or not, it doesn't change the dynamic of parenting. You should be able to feel one parent through the presence of another and vice versa. They should be a team. There should not be like mom says this, dad says that. And so that's very much what I had growing up. And it's just, he was so present with each three of us as much as possible, and gave us all the tools and resources and hope and ability to learn how to dream. That, man, when I compare myself, when I talk to other people, even from my hometown or other people my same age who had a fully present father, who had, the nice house, and they had money for college, and they had, their parents gave them a car when they turned 16 and all these things, like literally the opposite of everything that I had. I don't hear a lot of that. It was the car instead of time with dad. It was money instead of time with dad. It was this instead of that. And that's what we think that we want or think that we need. And because we see everybody else getting it. So, hey, where's my share? But the greatest thing I could ever give to my future children is just my full, complete, present self. And, that's what I strive for in every interaction. I joke with, I joke with my wife that, I feel like I'm dating everybody that I see.
I love that.
I date with everybody because I love being here now with you, and just the smallest little encounters of what lights you up lights me up, and just the smallest way that I can learn how to fuel your fire a little bit, or connect a dot for you, or introduce you to somebody, or give a resource, it is 100,000,000,000% a reflection of what my father did for me. He was a hardworking guy. He wasn't the most intelligent, book smart guy. I mean, hell, I joke now, I have this one little kind of devotional book from my dad that he gave me the day that I left for boot camp. And it's kind of like, call it like a a Bible version of the Daily Stoic. It's every day there's a Bible passage and then like a little expansion, kind of food for thought. And in the front cover of it, he wrote something along the lines of, Chase, I love you. Today's the day. Here's the day. You're flying the coop. I'm so proud of you and your choice, blah, blah, blah. And at the bottom, he misspelled ever forward. So I'm like, case in point, man, I've built my life off of the wrong words. He FOWARD. I'm like, Dad, there's another R there. But man, I never knew any different. And so I can only give what I received. And I received the most present man I have ever known. And that's how I know to give love. That's how I know to receive love. Because when I take a step back and I go, okay, I didn't get this my childhood. I had to buy my own car. I didn't have money for college. I had to do all these things. But man, the purpose and meaning and fulfillment I have now, like that's it. That's it. So I can just look back at the breadcrumbs of success and just hopefully share that with other people. Also, I think a part of it is I'm the older brother, the oldest of three. There's big brother syndrome or oldest sibling syndrome. 6 years active duty. I worked my way up through several leadership roles. Sergeant, staff sergeant, left the Army as an E6. So I definitely had to kind of step into those roles quite a bit. Working in corporate America, was a 9-to-5er, was a director for a concierge medical practice. And so I've had a lot of leadership roles over the years that I definitely think influenced that as well. But yeah, I can only give what I got, and I got the best.
Dude, it is so remarkable that I begin the podcast by talking about your presence as being the thing that I know you as. And I ask you what makes for a great father after this whole conversation, and you say presence.
I'm living a lie. Nothing is mine. It's all my dad.
No, I take that as the full circle nature and the incredible sense of you've become what you aspired to in such a real sense. And I wonder, if I'd asked you what made for a good father 10 years ago, if you would have said presence, what would you have said? I'd be like strong man or like...
I don't think I even knew the word presence 10 years ago. Hell, 3 years ago.
Yeah. It's remarkable.
No.
It's so beautiful, man. I am so grateful for you that like an archetype of you exists, of like somebody who has succeeded in the worlds of building your body, building your bank account, building business, whatever, but also like, dude, you're an actually emotionally intelligent man in all of that who's able to sit with himself and therefore sit with other people. And for that, I commend you and thank you so much for being here and being a part of this podcast.
Received, man. Thank you so much. And, to be in the presence of other guys like yourself that are embodying that and in daily pursuit of that is really what fuels my fire the most. And it's, I have my purpose and my meaning and my path now. And for the first time in, 36 years, there's clarity and confirmation in that. But then the ability to do that and to act accordingly also, man, I don't want to say like leaving a trail. In some ways, yes, but I thoroughly believe that in pursuit of that, and the more true I stick to that and to me, I realize like, oh, Danny's right here. Zach's right here. Yeah. Dom's right here. It's like the fog between all of us, especially men, lowers. And we realize, oh, I can be in pursuit of what I want out of life. And I can embody this archetype that feels so true to me. And I'm not alone, which I think is a very fearful thing for especially a lot of guys to deviate from any typical norm or assumption of the archetype is I'm alone. What are other guys going to think of me? There's no one else out here. But the more that we do, that fog lowers, or we develop somehow a better skill set to find other guys wandering through the woods, wandering through life. And then, man, now look at us. Like, how the hell do we all find each other? Synchronicities, energetics, good word of mouth between other great guys.
Yeah.
All play the most vital roles.
Yeah. I just love that you can be masculine doesn't mean just being aggressive and accomplishing things. It actually means holding space for your emotions and feelings as well. And yeah, you've done it. And it's an incredible thing that is starting to happen and starting to be widespread. Because if you think about us growing up, where was that archetype? in popular culture? I can't think of one. And it's like,
if it did exist, we didn't really know about it.
Correct.
You know?
And it wasn't the cool thing to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now I see it becoming cooler and cooler day by day because of the truth of what it is. So
can I share a quick little story
Please.
with you on that? One of the most distinct early childhood memories I have in general, but also of my father. I don't know if he realized what was happening at the time. Maybe he had to. My dad was coming home from a job, and we were living with our grandparents and his mom and dad. My grandfather, drunk, addicted, tobacco, alcohol, emotionally, physically abusive to my grandmother, our whole family. And there was a moment, a very scary moment, when he was having a day, man. And everybody else caught his wrath, emotionally, physically. And my grandmother yelled at me basically like, run. And I ran out of the back of the house, and I was in our backyard. I was maybe 6 years old, if that, and just hiding, but out in plain sight. And my dad came home and he was like, what are you doing out here? Why are you out here by yourself? And I just began to cry, and I get emotional now. It's very powerful change in archetype and change in generational trauma. Even when I told him what was happening, my dad, big burly guy, 11 Bravo in the Army. He was in the National Guard at the time. That's why he was home. He could have been the typical, I'm going to come in and fuck shit up. I'm going to fight my dad. I'm going to, just add kerosene to the fire to show that I'm right, he's wrong, which he was. But there was this moment where I just remember, I can still see him. I can see my dad's eyes in yours right now when I think about this. I saw him turn red. I saw him well up with tears and emotion and anger and fear. And I saw him take a breath. And I saw it all dissipate. And I saw him choose to change that archetype right then and there. And I saw him consciously or subconsciously choose to model differently for me, his son, than what his father was doing for him and his grandchildren at the moment. And so he went into the house, not arms a swinging, not yelling and screaming, but first making sure that my brother and my sister and our family were safe and out of his wrath. And then somehow, some way, he had a conversation with his father. And I will never forget that moment. And I think that was the first imprint on me, conscious imprint of that's not what a man does. More importantly, if we do see something that doesn't connect with us, that we don't feel in alignment with, by taking a moment, we can literally change the future. We can rewrite what we don't like about that male persona, especially in the presence of other men, especially in the presence of our children. And I don't know if he ever realized that that's what he did. I unfortunately will never have the living opportunity to kind of explore this with him, but I'll never forget that moment.
Soul over ego. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a really special thing to be a part of this podcast. Like, I was touched, moved, and like feel so deeply that who this is supposed to reach, it will impact them at a deep level, because it impacted me at a deep level. So thank you so much.
Thank you for making this space and this container, and making a platform, continuously making a platform for conversations that matter, for conversations that you're most curious about, but also that I thoroughly believe will help people now and in 6 years from now.
Wow. Chase, thank you so much.
My dude.
Where should we send people?
Come on over to Everforward Radio, and you can follow me on Instagram at Chase_Chewning. Yeah, Everforward Radio is where I have unpacked these longer format conversations of, I say, physical and mental resiliency, learning how to move forward in multiple areas of your well-being and to keep moving ever forward, which is, I think I mentioned it earlier, but, all credit to my dad. This was his phrase, his mantra. I've heard it damn near every day of my life when he was alive. And now it's just a cool part that I know is in my past. I know is there, but I've got so much wide open space now to create from, but still with.
So beautiful. A real inspiration and light for men all around the world. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, man. Thank you.